art of staying calm in a chaotic world. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by life's challenges? Have you ever let frustration, fear, or anger control your emotions? In a world full of uncertainty, where stress and negativity seem unavoidable, how can we stay calm, resilient, and in control? The answer lies in Stoicism, a powerful philosophy that has guided some of history's greatest minds. From emperors to warriors, from philosophers to ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. At its core, Stoicism teaches us how to master our emotions, control our reactions, and find peace no matter what happens around us. It is not about suppressing feelings, but about understanding them, managing them, and using them to grow stronger. In this guide, we will explore 10 essential Stoic lessons that will help you stay calm in difficult situations, overcome setbacks with resilience, let go of things beyond your control, find happiness in the present moment, live with wisdom, courage, and discipline. These are not just theories, they are practical tools that you can apply to your life today. So, are you ready to unlock the secret to emotional freedom and unshakable inner peace? Let's begin. Lesson 1. Embrace what you can't control. In life, many things happen that are beyond our control: traffic delays, unexpected job losses, people's opinions, and even the weather. Yet, we often react to these things with frustration, stress, or disappointment. The Stoics teach us that peace of mind comes from understanding the dichotomy of control. The idea that we should focus only on what we can influence and let go of what we cannot. To illustrate this lesson, let's dive into a story of a man who learned this principle the hard way: the uncontrollable storm. Ethan was an ambitious entrepreneur, determined to make his startup a success. He had been working on a major pitch for months, hoping to land a crucial investor deal that would take his company to the next level. The day of the presentation finally arrived. Ethan woke up early, rehearsed his speech one last time, and felt confident. But as he stepped outside, dark clouds gathered, and within minutes, heavy rain began pouring down. Traffic was at a standstill. Despite leaving early, he was now running late. His heart pounded. He honked his horn, muttered curses under his breath, and anxiously checked the time. The meeting was in 15 minutes, and he was still miles away. Why is this happening to me? This is unfair, he thought, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His frustration built up as he imagined his investors growing impatient, checking their watches, and ultimately walking away. Finally, he reached the office, drenched from the rain, and rushed inside. As expected, the investors had already left. The receptionist handed him a note. Punctuality is a sign of discipline. We cannot work with someone who doesn't respect time. Ethan felt a surge of anger and self-blame. He had worked so hard for this, and now everything was ruined because of a stupid traffic jam. That night, as he sat at home replaying the events, his mentor, Mr. Carter, called him. "I heard about what happened. How are you feeling?" "I'm furious. It was out of my hands. The rain, the traffic, none of it was my fault," Ethan snapped. Mr. Carter chuckled. "Ethan, let me ask you something. What could you have done differently?" Ethan hesitated. "I guess I could have left even earlier." "Exactly," Mr. Carter replied. "You cannot control the rain. You cannot control traffic. But you can control how you prepare for the unexpected. Instead of wasting energy on frustration, learn from it and improve your approach next time." Ethan sat in silence, absorbing the lesson. What about you? How often do we waste time complaining about things beyond our control? We stress over other people's actions, unexpected circumstances, or bad luck. But does frustration change anything? Think about the last time you got upset over something outside your influence. Did anger help, or did it just make things worse? What if instead of getting upset, you focused only on what you could do? A lesson from the Stoics. Epictetus, a former slave who became a great Stoic philosopher, once said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not. If you try to control what you cannot, you will suffer. But if you focus on what is within your power, you will find peace." Imagine two sailors caught in a storm. One panics, shouting at the sky, blaming the wind and waves. The other adjusts the sails, keeps a steady hand on the wheel, and navigates through the storm. Which one survives? We all face storms in life. The question is, will you fight against the wind, or will you adjust your sails? How to apply this in your life? Pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If not, let it go. Take responsibility for what you can control. If you're late, plan better next time. If someone is rude, control your reaction. Accept the unexpected. Life will always be unpredictably. Your power lies in adapting to it. The moment you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and frustration. So, next time life throws a storm your way, ask yourself, am I fighting the wind or am I adjusting my sails? Lesson 2, the power of acceptance. No matter how hard we try, life will never go exactly as we plan. Unexpected setbacks, personal losses, and disappointments are inevitable. Yet, most of us resist these events, wishing things were different, as if our frustration could change reality. The Stoics, however, teach us a different approach: acceptance. Instead of resisting what is beyond our control, we should embrace it, understanding that fighting against reality only brings suffering. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who learned to accept life's unpredictability in the most painful way possible: the musician's unfinished symphony. Nathan was a gifted pianist, a prodigy since childhood. His dream was to become a world-renowned composer, creating music that would be played for generations. At the age of 28, he was on the brink of success. A prestigious orchestra had agreed to perform one of his compositions, his life's work. One evening, while crossing the street, Nathan was hit by a car. He survived, but the accident left him with severe nerve damage in his hands. The doctors told him the devastating news: he would never be able to play the piano again. When Nathan heard this, he refused to accept it. "No, this can't be happening. There must be a way to fix this," he shouted. For months, he visited every specialist, trying experimental therapies, hoping for a miracle. But no matter what he did, his hands remained weak and unresponsive. His depression deepened. He stopped composing, stopped listening to music, and shut himself away from the world. How can I live if I can't play? If I can't create music with my own hands, then what's the point? He thought. One day, his former mentor, Mr. Harris, visited him. "Nathan, I know this is hard, but you have to accept it," Mr. Harris said gently. "Accept it." "You want me to accept that my life is ruined?" Nathan snapped. Mr. Harris sighed and pulled out a book from his bag. It was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. He flipped to a passage and read aloud, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Nathan scoffed. "So what? I'm just supposed to give up?" "No," Mr. Harris said. "But tell me, did you become a musician just to move your fingers, or was it because you loved music?" Nathan remained silent. "Then why not find a new way?" Beethoven lost his hearing, yet he composed some of his greatest symphonies. While deaf music isn't just in your hands, Nathan, it's in your mind, in your soul. Something in those words struck Nathan deeply. He realized that while he had lost control over his hands, he still had control over his passion for music. Instead of dwelling on what he could no longer do, he began to compose music in a different way by dictating melodies to his assistant, using technology to bring his creations to life. A year later, his new composition, written entirely without playing a single note himself, was performed by the same orchestra that once invited him. The audience was moved to tears, and so was Nathan. What about you? How often do we waste energy resisting the inevitable? When faced with loss, rejection, or unexpected setbacks, our first instinct is often denial and anger. But does that change reality? What if, instead of fighting what we cannot change, we learn to accept it and move forward? Think of a time when something didn't go your way. Did your resistance help, or did it only make things worse? The Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers, faced immense hardships as a Roman emperor, wars, plagues, and betrayal. Yet, in his writings, he reminds himself, you have to assemble your life yourself action by action, and be satisfied if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. Life will never be perfect. Things will always go wrong. But peace comes not from avoiding hardship, but from accepting it and adapting. Imagine two people lose their jobs. One falls into despair, blaming the company and feeling like a failure. The other accepts it, takes time to reflect, and finds a new opportunity. Who do you think will move forward? How to apply this in your life? Pause and ask yourself, am I resisting reality? Shift your focus from frustration to action. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, what can I do next? Understand that life is uncertain. Not everything is within your control, but your response always is. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means recognizing reality and choosing how to move forward with strength and wisdom. So the next time life throws something unexpected your way, ask yourself, will I fight against the storm, or will I learn to dance in the rain? Lesson 3. Practice mindfulness. Live in the present. Many of us spend our days either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We replay mistakes, regret missed opportunities, and constantly fear what lies ahead. But in doing so, we often forget the most valuable thing we have, the present moment. The Stoics believe that true peace comes from being fully present, accepting each moment as it is without letting regrets or anxieties consume us. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who was always trapped in his past and future until he learned a powerful lesson. The man who forgot to live? Daniel was a successful businessman. On the outside, he had everything: wealth, a thriving company, and a beautiful home. But inside, he was restless. Whenever he was at work, he worried about past mistakes, thinking, I should have made a different decision. I could have closed that deal better. Whenever he was at home, he thought about work, stressing over future projects. What if I fail? What if my business collapses next year? Even during family dinners, his mind wandered. His wife and son would talk to him, but he barely heard them. He was physically present, but mentally absent. One day, while driving home after a stressful meeting, Daniel's phone buzzed with an urgent email. He glanced at it for just a second. That second changed everything. The sound of screeching tires, a loud crash, then silence. Daniel woke up in the hospital, dazed. A nurse stood beside him. You're lucky to be alive, she said. Another second later, and the accident could have been fatal. For the first time in years, Daniel was forced to pause. Lying in that hospital bed, he realized something. He had spent so much time thinking about the past and future that he had forgotten to live in the present. He thought about his son's last birthday. He was there, but was he really there? He had been answering emails during the party, barely noticing his child's excitement. He thought about his wife's conversations. How many times had he nodded absent-mindedly while thinking about work? He had been alive, but he had not truly lived. What about you? How often do we find ourselves physically present, but mentally elsewhere? Have you ever been in a conversation but only half listening, thinking about something else? Have you ever eaten a meal without really tasting it, lost in thoughts of the past or future? Have you ever walked outside but didn't notice the beauty around you because your mind was elsewhere? When was the last time you truly lived in the present? The Stoic perspective? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of our pain doesn't come from what's happening now, it comes from what we fear might happen or what we regret from the past. Marcus Aurelius also reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. The present moment is all you ever truly possess. No matter how much we worry, we cannot change the past. No matter how much we fear, we cannot control the future, but we do have power over this moment right now. The choice is yours. Imagine two people watching a sunset. One is lost in thought, worrying about tomorrow's work. The other simply sits, watches the sky, and feels the warmth of the sun. Who is truly living? How to apply this in your life? Catch yourself when your mind drifts. When you notice you're thinking about the past or future, gently bring yourself back to the present. Engage fully in what you're doing, whether it's eating, talking, or working. Be completely there. Breathe. A simple deep breath can anchor you to the present moment. Limit distractions. When spending time with loved ones, put your phone away. When working, focus on one task at a time. The present moment is all we ever truly have. So ask yourself, am I really here? Or am I letting life slip by while my mind is elsewhere? Lesson 4, cultivate resilience. See adversity as a teacher. Life is full of challenges. At some point, we all face rejection, failure, and loss. But while some people let adversity break them, others use it as fuel to grow stronger. The Stoics believed that every obstacle is an opportunity, a chance to develop resilience, patience, and wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they asked, "What can I learn from this?" To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who turned his greatest hardship into his greatest strength. The blacksmith's fire. James was a blacksmith, known for his craftsmanship and dedication. He had spent years building a small workshop in his village, creating tools and weapons that people depended on. One night, disaster struck. A fire broke out, reducing his workshop to ashes. All his equipment, years of effort, gone in a single night. As James stood in the ruins of his life's work, villagers gathered around. "This is terrible," one said. "How will you recover from this?" Another asked, James clenched his fists. "This isn't fair. Why did this happen to me?" He felt anger, sadness, and hopelessness. For days he sat outside the burned workshop, staring at the ruins, lost in self-pity. Then, an old traveler passed by and sat beside him. "What's wrong?" the traveler asked. James pointed at the ruins. "Everything I worked for is gone. My life is over." The traveler chuckled. "So you're a blacksmith?" "I was," James muttered. The traveler picked up a chunk of iron from the debris and tossed it to James. "Then tell me, what happens when you put metal in fire?" James sighed. "It softens so it can be shaped." "And what happens after that?" The traveler pressed. "It becomes stronger," James admitted. The traveler smiled. "Then why do you think you're any different? The fire didn't destroy you. It's just reshaping you into something stronger." James sat in silence, absorbing the words. The next morning, he cleared the debris and started rebuilding. He took his time, learning new techniques, using better materials, and designing a more efficient workshop. Months later, his new workshop was not only restored, it was better than before. James had been tested by fire, just like the iron he worked with, and he had come out stronger. What about you? How do you react to setbacks? Do you let failure defeat you, or do you use it to grow? Do you see adversity as a curse or as an opportunity to build strength? Think about the last time something didn't go your way. Did you let it break you, or did you rise above it? The Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is the path. The very thing that seems to block your progress is what forces you to grow. Imagine two athletes training for a marathon. One avoids discomfort, running only when the weather's perfect. The other trains in the rain, in the cold, and on steep hills. When race day comes, who do you think will be stronger? Hardship is the training ground for resilience. How to apply this in your life? Reframe challenges as opportunities. Instead of saying, "This is unfair," ask, "What can I learn from this?" Build your mental endurance. Like a muscle, resilience grows stronger the more you exercise it. Face discomfort, don't avoid it. Remember that fire forges strength. Just like metal in the forge, you become tougher through life's trials. Hard times will come, but you have a choice. Will you let the fire consume you, or will you use it to become something stronger? Lesson 5. Choose your response. Control how you react. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. A rude comment, a rejected job application, an unexpected failure. These are all external events, but whether they ruin your day or become lessons depends entirely on your reaction. The Stoics believed that between an event and our reaction, there is a choice, a space where we can decide whether to respond with anger, sadness, or calmness. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who learned to master this choice, the warrior's test. Ethan was a young warrior, training to become the best fighter in his village. He was skilled, fast, and determined. But he had one major weakness: his temper. Whenever someone insulted him, he lashed out. If he lost a fight, he would break his weapons in frustration. He was strong, but his emotions controlled him. One day, the village elder, Master Kenji, challenged Ethan. "If you truly wish to be a great warrior, you must pass my test." Ethan smirked. "Name the challenge, I will win." Master Kenji led Ethan to the village square, where an old beggar sat on the ground. "This is your test," Kenji said. "Sit beside the beggar and remain calm, no matter what happens." Confused, but determined, Ethan sat. At first, nothing happened. But then, the beggar started laughing at him. "Look at you, a mighty warrior, sitting in the dirt like a fool," he sneered. Ethan clenched his fists, but said nothing. The beggar threw a piece of rotten fruit at Ethan's feet. "What kind of warrior takes orders like a dog?" Ethan's anger boiled. He wanted to hit the old man, to prove his strength. But then, he looked at Master Kenji, who was watching silently. Ethan took a deep breath. He chose not to react. The beggar stood up and smiled. In a flash, he removed his disguise. It was Master Kenji himself. "Now you are ready," Kenji said. "A true warrior does not let others control his emotions. He controls himself." Ethan bowed in understanding. He had passed the test not with his fists, but with his mind. What about you? How often do we let other people dictate our emotions? A rude driver cuts you off. Do you get angry or let it go? Someone criticizes you. Do you react in rage or stay composed? You fail at something. Do you break down or try again? The event itself has no power. Only your reaction matters. The Stoic perspective. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, taught it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think of a ship in a storm. A weak captain panics, letting the waves dictate his fate. A strong captain remains calm, adjusting his course with wisdom. Life is full of storms. Will you be the weak captain or the strong one? How to apply this in your life? Pause before reacting. When you feel anger or frustration rising, take a deep breath. Give yourself a moment to decide your response. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most things that upset us don't truly matter in the long run. Train your mind, just like Ethan, practice small moments of self-control daily. The more you practice, the stronger you become. Life will always throw challenges your way, but remember, you are the master of your reactions. So next time something provokes you, ask yourself, am I in control or am I letting someone else control me? Lesson 6. Limit excessive desires. True happiness comes from within. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with messages telling us that we need more and more money, more success, a bigger house, a better car. But no matter how much we get, it never seems to be enough. The Stoics warned that chasing external things will never bring lasting happiness. True contentment comes from appreciating what we already have rather than endlessly craving what we don't. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who had everything but still felt empty. The merchant who had it all. There was once a wealthy merchant named Samuel. He owned vast lands, ships filled with goods, and a mansion filled with treasures. But despite all his riches, he was never satisfied. Every time he made a fortune, he set his eyes on a bigger goal. Every time he acquired something new, he quickly lost interest and desired something else. One day, Samuel heard of a wise philosopher who lived in the mountains, said to hold the secret to happiness. Desperate to find fulfillment, he traveled to meet him. When he arrived, He was shocked. The philosopher, Master Aurelius, lived in a simple hut with only a mat, a clay bowl, and a small lamp. Samuel laughed. "You are the wisest man in the land, yet you own nothing. How can you be happy?" Master Aurelius smiled. "Tell me, Samuel, if you were thirsty and I gave you a cup of water, would you be grateful?" "Of course," Samuel replied. "And if I gave you a second cup, I suppose I'd still be grateful. And a third, a fourth." Samuel hesitated. "At some point, I wouldn't need any more." Master Aurelius nodded. "That is the nature of desire. A little satisfies, but too much becomes a burden." Samuel frowned. "So you're telling me to abandon my wealth?" "Not at all," Aurelius said. "I am simply saying, if you constantly chase more, you will never feel full. But if you learn to appreciate what you already have, you will never feel lacking." Samuel sat in silence, realizing the truth in those words. What about you? Have you ever wanted something badly, only to feel unsatisfied once you got it? The new phone that seemed exciting, but became just another device after a few months. The job promotion that made you happy at first, but soon felt like not enough. The dream house that, once bought, led to wanting something bigger. Why does this happen? Because happiness doesn't come from getting more rich, it comes from wanting less. The Stoic perspective, Seneca, a famous Stoic philosopher, once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking." The Stoics understood that desires never end. If you believe happiness comes from external things, you will always be chasing an illusion. Instead, true freedom comes from learning to be content with what you have. How to apply this in your life? Practice gratitude daily. Each morning, list 3 things you already have that bring you joy. Ask yourself before buying something new, do I truly need this, or am I just chasing more? Find joy in simplicity. Spend time in nature, appreciate relationships, and enjoy small moments. Wealth is not bad. Success is not bad. But if you believe happiness comes from getting more, you will never find peace. So next time you want something desperately, ask yourself, is this a true need, or am I just chasing a desire that will never end? Lesson 7. Live a virtuous life. Character over possessions. Many people spend their lives chasing wealth, fame, or status, believing that these things define success. But the Stoics believe that true greatness is not measured by what you have, but by who you are. They emphasized the importance of virtue living with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. A person who lives by these principles will always find peace, no matter their circumstances. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who had to choose between wealth and virtue. The 2 paths of Marcus. Marcus was a rising politician, known for his intelligence and charm. One day, he was approached by a powerful senator who offered him a deal. "Support my interests in the next vote, and I will make you one of the richest men in Rome." The senator said. It was tempting. Marcus had worked hard, but true wealth and influence still felt out of reach. With this one decision, he could secure his future. But deep down, he knew the senator's plans were corrupt. If he accepted, he would have to betray his values. Marcus faced a choice: take the bribe, gain wealth and status, but live with the guilt of dishonesty. Refuse the bribe, stay true to his principles, but risk losing everything. That night, he read the works of Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, who wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Marcus realized that if he let greed control him, he would become a prisoner of his own desires. The next day, he rejected the senator's offer. People called him foolish. Some doors closed for him. But in time, Marcus became known as one of the few honest leaders in Rome, admired for his integrity. He may not have been the richest man, but he was the freest. What about you? Have you ever been tempted to compromise your values for success? Maybe you had a chance to cheat in an exam or lied to get ahead. Maybe you witnessed something unfair at work, but chose to stay silent. Maybe you were pressured to betray your morals to fit in. What choice did you make? And did it bring you peace? The Stoic perspective. The Stoics believe that wealth, power, and pleasure are temporary, but character lasts forever. Seneca, a wealthy Roman Stoic, wrote, "A good character, once established, will remain strong against any force." Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, reminded himself daily, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, fame fades, wealth disappears, but your actions define your legacy." How to apply this in your life? Define your core values. What principles do you refuse to compromise, no matter the reward? Ask yourself before making a decision, will this make me proud of who I am? Choose integrity over convenience. Doing the right thing is often harder, but it always brings peace. People may forget your achievements, but they will never forget your character. So next time you face a moral dilemma, ask yourself, am I choosing what is right or just what is easy? Lesson 8. Understand the transitory nature of life. Nothing lasts forever. We often act as if the things we love will last forever. Our youth, our success, the people around us. But the truth is, everything is temporary. The Stoics embraced this reality, not with fear, but with gratitude. They taught that by accepting impermanence, we can appreciate life more deeply and live with greater peace. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who struggled with the fear of loss until he learned to see things differently. The King and the Wise Man. King Adrian was a ruler who feared change. He loved his kingdom, his wealth, and his family, and he dreaded the thought of losing any of them. One day, a wise man visited the palace. Seeing the king's anxious expression, he asked, "Your Majesty, why do you look troubled?" Adrian sighed, "I have everything I ever wanted, yet I cannot enjoy it. I fear the day it will all be taken from me." The wise man smiled and handed Adrian a small golden ring. "Wear this always, and it will bring you peace." Curious, the king looked at the inscription inside the ring. It read, "This too shall pass." "What does this mean?" Adrian asked. "It means that nothing in life is permanent," the wise man explained. "Your successes will fade, but so will your failures. Your joys will not last forever, but neither will your sorrows." Adrian was silent. He realized that instead of fearing loss, he should cherish what he had while it was still there. From that day on, whenever he faced a hardship, he looked at the ring and reminded himself, "This too shall pass." And when he experienced happiness, he appreciated it even more, knowing it was a fleeting gift. What about you? Do you ever fear losing the things you love? The fear of growing older, the fear of losing a loved one, the fear of failing and never recovering? What if instead of fearing loss, you used it as a reason to appreciate what you have now? Imagine if every time you hugged someone, you remembered that one day, that moment would only be a memory. Wouldn't you hold on just a little longer? The Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Seneca also wrote, "Enjoy the present, all else is beyond you." The Stoics did not view impermanence as something to grieve over. They saw it as a reminder to live fully in the present and to appreciate every moment. How to apply this in your life? Accept that nothing lasts forever. Instead of fearing change, embrace it as part of life. Cherish what you have now. Love more deeply, laugh more often, and be present with those you care about. Let go of unnecessary worries. No failure is final. No pain lasts forever. Everything passes in time. Life is always changing. We cannot hold on to it, but we can choose to appreciate every fleeting moment before it's gone. So next time you're afraid of losing something, ask yourself, am I wasting time worrying, or am I fully experiencing this moment while it lasts? Lesson 9. The value of gratitude. Appreciate what you have. In our pursuit of success, we often forget to appreciate what we already have. We focus on what's missing, what we haven't achieved yet, and what others have that we don't. But the Stoics taught that gratitude is the key to true happiness, not chasing after more, but recognizing and valuing what's already in front of us. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who learned that the secret to happiness was not in gaining more, but in appreciating what he had. The farmer's lesson. Oliver was a hardworking farmer. Every day he toiled in the fields from sunrise to sunset, but no matter how much he harvested, he was never satisfied. He looked at his neighbor's farm, which had more land. If only I had more land, I'd be happier, he thought. He looked at the merchant in the village who made more money. If only I were wealthier, life would be easier. One day, a wise monk passed through the village and stopped by Oliver's farm. "You seem troubled," the monk said. "What is it that you seek?" "I want more," Oliver replied. "More land, more money, more success, then I'll finally be happy." The monk smiled and handed Oliver a small wooden bowl. "Fill this bowl with rice," the monk said. "When it is full, you will find the happiness you seek." Oliver eagerly scooped rice into the bowl. But to his shock, no matter how much he poured in, the bowl never filled. It remained empty, as if swallowing every grain. Frustrated, Oliver turned to the monk. "What kind of trick is this?" The monk laughed. "This bowl is like your desires. No matter how much you put in, it will never be enough. True happiness comes not from having more, but from appreciating what you already have." Oliver stood in silence. He looked around his farm, his home, his family waiting for him. He had spent so much time chasing what he didn't have that he had forgotten to appreciate what he did. From that day forward, he practiced gratitude. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly rich. What about you? How often do you focus on what's missing instead of appreciating what's already there? When was the last time you appreciated having food, a warm bed, or a loved one by your side? Have you ever achieved a goal only to immediately set a new one without stopping to celebrate? Happiness isn't in the next achievement, the next purchase, or the next milestone. It's in appreciating what's already here. The Stoic perspective. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Marcus Aurelius also reminded himself daily, "Do not waste what you have by desiring what you lack." Gratitude shifts our mindset. Instead of focusing on what we don't have, it reminds us that we already have enough. How to apply this in your life? Start a gratitude practice. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for, big or small. Appreciate the present moment. Don't wait until something is gone to realize its value. Stop comparing yourself to others. The fastest way to lose happiness is to measure your life against someone else's. No matter where you are in life, there is always something to be grateful for. So ask yourself, am I spending my time chasing more, or am I taking a moment to appreciate what I already have? Lesson 10. Keep learning and growing. The journey never ends. Many people believe that once they reach a certain level of success, they can stop learning. They get comfortable, thinking they've figured everything out. But the Stoics believe that self-improvement is a lifelong journey. No matter how much we know, there is always more to learn. No matter how skilled we become, there is always room to grow. True wisdom comes from embracing the mindset of a student, constantly seeking to improve, adapt, and refine ourselves. To illustrate this, let's explore the story of a man who thought he had reached the top until life humbled him. The master who became a student. Thomas was a respected martial artist, known for his speed and strength. After years of training, he won a prestigious championship and was declared the best fighter in his city. Feeling invincible, Thomas began teaching others, but stopped learning himself. Why should I keep training? I've already mastered my craft, he thought. One day, an old warrior named Master Li visited his dojo. Watching Thomas train, Master Li smiled. "Would you like to spar with me?" the old man asked. Thomas laughed. "I don't fight old men. Are you afraid?" Li challenged. Annoyed, Thomas agreed. The match began, and within seconds, Master Li had knocked him to the ground. Shocked, Thomas stood up. They fought again. Once more, the old man easily defeated him. "How?" Thomas gasped. I thought I was the best, Masterly chuckled. You stopped learning. And when you stop learning, you stop growing. Thomas realized his mistake. The moment he thought he had nothing left to learn was the moment he began to fall behind. From that day on, he returned to being a student, curious, humble, and always seeking to improve. What about you? Have you ever reached a goal and thought, "That's it, I've made it," only to realize later that you still had more to learn? Maybe you became skilled at something but stopped practicing, only to grow rusty over time. Maybe you thought you knew everything about a subject, only to discover new insights later. Maybe you assumed you had life figured out, until something unexpected forced you to change. The moment we stop learning, we start declining. The Stoic perspective. Epictetus, once a slave who became a great philosopher, believed that true wisdom comes from realizing how little we know. He taught, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in history, constantly reminded himself, "Do not be wise in your own opinion. Always seek to learn." Even as a ruler, he never stopped reading, questioning, and improving. If the Emperor of Rome saw himself as a student, why should any of us think we have nothing left to learn? How to apply this in your life? Stay curious. Read books, ask questions, and explore new ideas daily. Challenge yourself. Try things that push you outside your comfort zone. Growth comes from discomfort. Adopt a student mindset. No matter how skilled you become, always assume there's more to learn. Life is a continuous journey of improvement. The moment you believe you've made it is the moment you begin to decline. So ask yourself, am I still learning, or have I let myself become stagnant? Conclusion: the Stoic path to inner peace. Through these 10 lessons, we have explored the wisdom of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us how to remain calm, resilient, and focused in a chaotic world. From controlling our reactions to accepting impermanence, from practicing gratitude to constantly learning and growing, Stoicism offers a timeless guide to living a fulfilled life. But remember, these lessons are not just ideas, they must be practiced. When life feels overwhelming, ask yourself, am I focusing on what I can control? When you face setbacks, remind yourself every challenge is an opportunity to grow. When chasing after success, pause and reflect. Do I appreciate what I already have? And above all, keep learning. Growth is a lifelong journey. By applying these principles, you can develop the strength, wisdom, and peace to navigate any situation life throws at you. So the question is, will you merely read about Stoicism, or will you truly live it?